Hello, 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 hello. How are we doing today? My name is Chris, and this is Scott. Scott's back in the Action Lab. We are here live on a Sunday evening. We hope you have been doing a fantastic, just general things all the weekend. You've been just enjoying it, having a great time, and you're just ending the weekend here strong with all of us here on the Action Lab. So, I mean, we're getting into a new week here. We have a lot to talk about. Scotty, welcome back. You were out Wednesday. We had a filler in and brought Brandon in to take over. And what did you think? How did he do?
Yeah, I wasn't able to be on, but I was able to watch a decent amount, at least from work, and catch a lot of it. He did good. I was a little bit after the show like, all right, my time is run out on the Action Lab. Brandon will just take over from here. It seems like a seamless transition, and it's been a good run for me. So, no, it was a good show. It was a good show. So glad he could fill in, and he did a great job, and you guys did a good job. So glad you weren't left hanging like I leave you sometimes, just talking with yourself for all that time. So
No, man, it was good. I thought he did a great job too. So, who knows? Maybe he'll come back if you can't make it. Or I was thinking, man, he just brings a lot in general. Maybe we just have a three of us on a show one time coming up. That would be fun.
yeah, I'm down for it.
I mean, he's got to earn his stripes, right? He hasn't.
Yeah,
he's
like,
still.
Listen, I'm not gonna hold back on him. There were some things, and I'm gonna be honest. Like, my chat was struggling, so it was like delayed at least 30, 45 seconds from when I chatted to where it actually showed up. But There were some takes he had some hot takes, which I appreciate.
Oh,
I don't know if I agreed with him, but I appreciate him throwing them out there. That's what I like to see it.
He threw out some fun ones. I mean, what did he say? Would you bet would you bet on your own team? Would you get if you were
the hockey, the NHL talk with Vander Kane and what he was throwing out, like why shouldn't you be able to bet on your team, or why can't you bet on at least other games in the sport, even if you're not playing in it, and things like that, which I appreciate him throwing them out there. And there's certainly an argument to be made. Probably more on the side that you can't open that Pandora's box. Like you can't do it, or people are going to take advantage of it. There's going to be deals in place. Like it just diminishes the sport, in my opinion, and people will bet less because they won't trust it. They won't trust what they're seeing. They won't trust what they're watching, because they know these guys like have stakes in it. And listen, I work obviously in baseball for the Rockies. I'm not allowed to bet on Major League Baseball in any capacity, and I promise you I have zero inside information with my job, so I have no advantage whatsoever. But I'm still not allowed to do it. Huge repercussions if you get caught doing it, sort of thing. So it's definitely not worth it. And I don't even know if I'd be a big bettor on baseball as it is, so it's good that it's not even tempting for me. But but yeah, that's just I can never envision. Obviously, like you're talking like Pete Rose, obviously in baseball when he's manager of the Reds, he bet on his team. That's all he did was bet on his team, and now he's not allowed in the Hall of Fame. All of this, and there's controversy there on what's right or wrong, but you can't open that Pandora's box. That's dangerous.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to. But I mean, there are some interesting arguments for both sides. I don't want to mess around with it either. But you know what we are going to be betting on heavily is some NFL, man. I can't wait.
Oh, I'm just loading up the checking, or loading up the old bank account on the through the sports app. As long as my wife's not watching, I haven't actually loaded it up. That's just I'm excited. I'm ready for NFL. We finally got our first taste of a little NFL action the other night with the Hall of Fame game, Cowboys Steelers, and I want more, man. I want more. I'm ready for it.
Though, like I always get excited. I'm always like, man, football's back. I can't wait to watch the Hall of Fame game. And then you watch and you're just like, oh man, like you get totally baited in, and you just get a game like that, and it's just like, I just want the real thing. Like, no more of this garbage preseason. Now, there are going to be a lot of, like, figuring out rosters and stuff. Obviously, there's only 3 games to do that this year, so teams are going to have to do that fairly quickly. But, yeah, it's just like every year it hits me. Every year, like, football's finally back. And then you realize what you're watching is just second and third and fourth stringers not even going to potentially make the team.
For sure. And like you got to know that going in, but there's something to be said for, and I know you're an NBA guy, but I'm going to throw this stat out there that I saw. There's something to be said for the viewership for this preseason game the other night. Like basically, I only saw the first 3 games, so I don't know where it went from there. But matched game 1 of the NBA Finals in viewership and beat games 2 and 3.
Wow.
So
okay. All right.
There were more viewers watching this preseason game than games 2 and 3 of the NBA Finals. That tells you how big the NFL just is. It's just a juggernaut that can be matched. Now the Cowboys playing helps a lot. Cowboys and Steelers. Those are huge big fan bases. Yeah. It was actually the most watched preseason game, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years, is what they said. So certainly higher than normal for a preseason game, but people are ready. And we didn't even have preseason last year, so people were like, oh, I forgot that it's not a great product. and listen, I get that like a lot of these guys that were playing aren't going to necessarily make the roster, but you got to also, there's something to be said for like these guys work their entire career to fight and claw, to live out their dream, and to just discount the game in general. Like, I don't know. Do you know who Mike Florio is?
I do.
He's on NBC. He's the worst, in my opinion. I follow him on Twitter, and he basically regurgitates information from other people is all he does. And he's just a pompous asshole, in my opinion. But he like went on Twitter and was just like, hey, here's to the first game where all these guys are going to be cut and it's a garbage football game. And people are like, why are you so joyless? Like, why do you hate the sport in which you cover? Like, have some respect. Like, these guys have worked their entire life to go out and try and make an NFL football team. So even though is this anywhere near the you know watching ability of a regular season game? No, but have some respect for them and like don't throw that out there. Like you cover the sport. Your livelihood is through this sport and you just trash it all the time. I'm not a fan of the guy. I'm not a fan at all.
Just get out of
he's
here.
got a book coming out, so if people want to buy that, it's called Playmakers. Apparently, it's probably gonna be trash.
Don't buy it. Don't. We're plugging the name of it, but we're not gonna be talking much about it outside of this. You're right though. It's like just why do you got to be a negative Nancy about it, right?
Like he could have tweeted just nothing. If you're not excited for the game, fine. Yeah, you're right. It's not gonna be the best football product ever. It's gonna be pretty bad for a lot of it. But why trash these guys that are like trying to give their all and provide a future for themselves, their families, all of that stuff? Like, just chill, man.
Just take a chill pill. Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. And you know what? Like, I'm excited though. We have a lot to talk about here with the NFL. We're getting into the nitty gritty of it. All the preseason games start this week coming up. So starting, I believe, Wednesday night is when things kick off. And then we go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I believe we have one on Sundays, how they're going about it. So not only that, you'll have some hard knocks to be following along with as well. So you'll be able to follow along with Dallas Cowboys training camp and everything going on behind the scenes there. So that'll be fun. And then we got fantasy football coming up. So everybody's gearing up for their drafts. So part of what we want to do tonight is start covering some of those positions and maybe some draft strategy of when you should possibly take a quarterback. Quarterbacks are going to be on our radar for our first little segment here when it comes to each and every week we're going to be covering, each and every game we're going to be covering a position ranking and then what the kind of strategy is for fantasy football. And tonight we're starting out with quarterbacks. So we're going to make sure you know everything you need to know about all the quarterbacks because that's a big time spot. There's only a handful of quarterbacks that are going to get you where you need to get. I know Scott's got one at the top of his list that he has usually every single year. But there are a few others that you might not be thinking about or you might just want to hold off on until maybe later rounds. So we're going to cover all of the strategy behind when and where you should take a quarterback, who you should take, that are going to help you win your fantasy football leagues this year. Because there's sometimes people have big things on the line, Scotty, with big fantasy football, like, either prizes or if you finish last, people have gotten like tattoos and stuff. Like there's all sorts of things that, could be repercussions for you to not to when you screw up your draft, something may happen that might not be pleasurable for you. So we want to get you so you don't fall in that category.
Yeah. I mean, obviously injuries can happen, but we're going to provide hopefully some analysis on maybe some strategy, maybe some who to look at different spots, who to maybe not target, several things like that. But anything's possible in fantasy football, obviously, and we haven't fully cleared, obviously, this COVID thing. So that could be a player this year again, unfortunately, when it comes to games as well as fantasy football. Let's hope not. Let's hope it's not a big factor. Let's hope that this new Delta variant or whatever dies down and we can have a normal season and get I'm so pumped for fans to be back in the stands. It was listen, it was great to have a season last year and I'm happy they made it happen, but let's get fans. I laughed because Derek Carr, they were having something in the Vegas stadium, and he's like, "We went 2-6 in this stadium last year because we didn't have you fans there." And then they painted the crowd, and there was 1,000 people there or something in the whole Vegas stadium watching one of their practices or something. I'm like, I don't think this is hitting like you think it's hitting. You're just pointing out that you went 2-6 at home last year is all you're pointing out, Carr. Love that guy. He's so nice, but he's so dumb.
I just don't get it, man. He's just all over the map sometimes. I don't even know how to take him seriously here and there. when he was like, I'll retire. I won't even be a Raider. I won't be anywhere else but a Raider. I'll just retire. I'm like, come on, man. Let's come back to the reality here. Let's come back to earth. So, yeah, that guy, sometimes you just don't know if he's got a complete tool set in his toolbox. But, I don't know. I
assure you he does not. Or he has a false sense of what reality is, at least. Certainly that.
Oh, man. But let's dive in, though. Now, Scotty, let's go ahead. Let's just dive in first. What do you say we cover some of the... Let's go ahead and cover some of the previews. So we wanted to do a couple previews of a couple divisions here, and we're going to start out in the NFC West. So, here we're just going to give you kind of some of the lines that are going to be popping off for these teams to make it through their division and who we think could potentially come out of this division. We're going to do the NFC West and the AFC West. So on Wednesday, we'll be covering maybe the North divisions on each side or whatever. So we're going to go, and each week we're going to be covering more and more, gearing you up for the NFL kickoff season and everything you need to know about week 1. So going in first, we have the NFC West, which, honestly, I feel like is a really fun division. It's going to be a really competitive division. Now, there are some teams that have made some moves, right? The Rams have a new quarterback. The Cardinals have a young quarterback, Kyler Murray, who's going to be coming up trying to make a name for himself in this division. And I think, honestly, he's a really strong candidate for, really taking a step forward if he can manage his injuries. You still got Russell Wilson. Excuse me. Russell Wilson in this one here where, honestly, he's just solid. You know what you're getting from Russell Wilson. And then San Francisco is, kind of looking to figure out, what they are going to be. I mean, obviously, John Lynch is trying to make some moves with those players in San Francisco, trying to make a big run at it too. But this division is a pretty wild division. And Scotty, right off the bat, what do you think about this one? And I haven't. I was gonna look at the odds, and I saw a couple different odds from a couple different spots, and what do you think based off of who Vegas has as a favorite versus who you think may come out of this division?
Well, I'll start by kind of going off what you said. Like, we're starting off with fire because I don't even think it's overly debatable. I don't think many people would debate that this is the best division in football, in my opinion. You look at these 4 teams, there's certainly 4 of the top 20 teams in the NFL. And you could probably argue that they're 4 of the top 15 teams in the NFL. I mean, obviously, the Niners had a rough year last year, but they had a ton of injuries. 2 years ago, they were in the Super Bowl, lead in the 4th. The Cardinals kind of collapsed on the stretch last year, but still went 8-8. Rams and Seahawks both made the playoffs. Were solid squads, and now the Rams obviously upgraded the quarterback position. Everyone feels like, and I agree with Matthew Stafford. So this one, we're not starting out with any easy pick here. And the odds tell you that you're going to get plus money on any team you bet in this division. So plus money meaning let's say you bet $100. Right now, I'm looking at DraftKings. Their current odds have the San Francisco 49ers, actually, who finished 4th in the division last year, of course, at plus 180. So what that means is if you bet $100, you would win $180 in return, along with getting your $100 back, profiting 180 on a $100 bet. But it's neck and neck. They have the LA Rams at plus 190, so just behind them. Seattle at plus 275, and then a gap there with Arizona at plus 650. My opinion is I think it does come down to 2 teams for me. I think it comes down to San Fran and LA. I certainly agree with that notion. But it's going to be tough. Like, it's hard to, project the Rams before we see Stafford play, right? And they had one of, if not the best defenses in the NFL last year. But sometimes defense is hard to repeat. It's a lot easier if you're a top 5 offense, it's a lot easier year to year to repeat that performance than it is to be a top 5 defense and repeat that performance. So listen, of course they have the best defensive player in all of football, and it's not even close. And Aaron Donald, and Jalen Ramsey on the back end. So they certainly have some pieces. They did lose, like John Johnson, one of their safeties in the backfield. A couple pieces there, but they'll still be good there. So they're going to be dangerous. We'll see what Stafford can bring, and I'll talk more about what I think he can bring when we talk about fantasy QBs a little later. I'm leaning San Fran though. I remember them from 2 years ago, and obviously the interesting storyline from there is who's going to be the QB. Like, I think most people think Jimmy G will at least start the season as the QB, but all reports I've seen from camp are that Trey Lance is. Listen, I'm going to say this right now, and I don't even want to say it. I don't like saying it.
Say it. Say it.
But I've heard reports from people saying they've never heard a team be this excited about a rookie quarterback in camp and what he's done so far and the crazy, amazing things he's done since one Patrick LeVon Mahomes.
Oh no, drink.
So,
take a drink.
Listen, obviously he's not on Mahomes's level, but it's going to be interesting if Jimmy starts slipping and putting Trey Lance in. Is that a good thing for them this season, or is he going to have his struggles? I don't know. I mean, he was super raw. He's even more raw, I think, than Mahomes was, and obviously Mahomes sat his first season, did not play. So it'll be interesting to watch with them, those top 2 teams and the quarterback. I'm not big on Seattle this year. I still question obviously down the stretch last year, they did not look offensively anywhere near how they looked the first half of the year. Russell was all upset about their offensive line, which they sort of addressed, but not any huge pieces added to that. Arizona, I think, is going to be competitive. Like, they shored up their offensive line better than Seattle did. They got Rodney Hudson from Oakland, who's an all-pro center. It's really going to fortify their line. They've gone back-to-back years drafting linebackers in the first round with Isaiah Simmons, who's kind of more of a flex hybrid with safety linebacker guy. And then Zaven Collins this year, who's a little bit more of a thumper, but can rush the quarterback and kind of a jack of all trades linebacker. So
we got you frozen here, I think, for a second. Here, hold on one second. Hold on. Let me get you back. Sorry, guys. We got some technical difficulties while we get Scotty back on the line here. Give me 1 second, and we'll see what we can get going. By the way, yeah, I think this is going to be one of those divisions that I'm super excited about. And I think really, honestly, this could be, well, I know it's the best division in football. I think it's most competitive. There's a lot of players going on here with this particular division is just insane right now. So give me 1 second while I get Scotty back here, and we will make sure that we are all good to go. But yeah, tell us what your thoughts are. So, by the way, this is a big thing for you guys to let us know what you think is the best deal going into this year. What, as far as what you think is going to happen with each of these divisions. And honestly, this one could be up in the air, man. Like, I think with San Francisco having a little bit of a wild card going on here, I think this could be a really, really fun division. And I can't wait for this one to come through. But let me go ahead. I'm going to try to get Scotty back on the line here. So just bear with me. We're going to go to a quick intermission, and we'll see where he ended up leaving to. So 1 second, guys. We'll be right back. 30-second break, intermission, and we'll be back talking some more NFC West breakout. All right. Okay, I think we got Scotty back. Scotty, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there we go. We're back. All right.
100% my fault. As I was talking, I didn't have my charger plugged in on my laptop. It said the battery was low. I thought I had more time.
Oh.
And on one end, but not on the other because I was talking and I didn't want to dip out of the screen. And sure enough, it was like shutting down.
Hey, man, I know you take 1 week off, and then this is what, you get some of the rookie mistakes. Rookie mistakes. Yeah. It's okay. It's all right. We're good. We're back, though, so we're all here. But no, I was just touching on how exciting this one can be. Now, there are a lot of fun things to see within this division. Now, for me, Arizona Cardinals, they did get a little older with J.J. Watt, A.J. Green. People forget they got a couple players there that, have historically been pretty solid, but are kind of on the tail end of their careers, maybe kind of on the downswing a little bit. But for a young team with a young coach, locker room leadership was needed. And so I think that's where they get some of those older guys, those older veterans in. Tough division, and they open with 3 of 4 on the road, which is tough for a team like this to kind of withstand. So we'll see how they can, just come out of the gates and see if they can make an impact there. Now, when it comes to everybody else, though, the Rams, Matt Stafford, I think is the big question there. We'll touch on him a little bit and where we think he slots in once we get into our fantasy football, as you mentioned. But we've really seen any quarterback that's plugged into Sean McVay's offense really thrive, no matter if it's a guy you've heard of or some guy that you didn't even know existed. They throw those guys back there, and I don't know, they just, for some reason, they slot into his offenses, and Sean McVay just works his magic with whoever he's got in there. So I think that this one could be a wild card in a sense, not like a wild card team, but just like a wild card in however Matt Stafford can adapt to that offense that Sean McVay wants to run. Man, they could have a high ceiling there, and so we'll see what happens. There have been some random teams reached the conference championship game in recent years. Titans, 49ers in 2020, Jags and Vikings. I mean, the Rams are firmly in the mix this year, though. I think they're really in a spot where they can potentially have a lot of upside in this division. So they're going to be right up there. But I'm with you, though. San Francisco is kind of the one that I'm keeping my eye on for sure, because Trey Lance, if he's what they think he can be, I mean, obviously he's come in, there's a learning curve, right? And not a lot of teams have been able to get game tape on him. Usually, any kind of quarterback that you haven't seen before, you're not really sure what to expect. So he's going to have that opportunity to catch people off guard. I heard they're potentially running some plays for him specifically to maybe even move on his feet as well. So he's going to be on the run quite a bit, maybe making some plays with his feet. So that could be a lot of fun. That's a little bit more of a dynamic than the San Francisco 49ers have been accustomed to, which they are welcoming at this point. So, with this, I feel like this is maybe one of the more long shots in the entire NFC. Maybe not a super long shot, but maybe one of the ones that you don't necessarily expect to make it all the way, because obviously Green Bay is always in the mix. You have Tampa Bay that's going to be in the mix. Some of these other teams in the NFC are going to be pretty strong, but look out for San Francisco, because I think San Francisco may sneak up on some teams if Trey Lance can be what they want him to be. So super exciting for me to see what that ends up turning into. But and then Seattle, haven't really talked too much about Seattle, but it just depends on what Seattle we're going to see, right? Are we going to see the first half Seattle Seahawks from last season where they went 6-1 and they averaged 34 points per game? Or are we going to see the second half Seahawks where they only topped 30 points once in the final 7 games? And it was pretty much only against the hapless Jets, right? The Jets are the only team that they got 30 points on the second half of the season. So Seattle has lost 3 of his past 4 playoff games, not made the NFC title game since 2014. Haven't really done a lot. So I don't know. I just don't see a lot of promise necessarily from them as much as I do like the up and coming teams that, like the Rams and the 49ers. I think, the Rams and the 49ers seem to be the teams that I feel like will gravitate towards the top half of this division. And I think the Seahawks and the Cardinals, even though the Cardinals are going to be a lot younger with their quarterback, Kyler Murray, I think, depending on his health, I think he can potentially even push them into, the middle tiers of this division. And yeah, maybe the Seahawks are on the outside looking in and they end up kind of falling a little bit further down the totem pole. But this is a fun division, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. When I talk about how competitive this division is, looking at NFC conference odds, the Rams and Niners are tied for third best odds in the NFC, and the Seahawks are right behind them. So they're tied for third and essentially fourth, and then the Seahawks are fifth in odds. So 3 of the top 5 teams as far as when you look at betting odds in Vegas, as far as who could win the NFC championship, are all in this division. So gonna be a lot of fun to watch, gonna be competitive, and that might hurt these teams in the long run as far as winning that NFC championship, because when you're battling out and playing two games against each of these tough opponents in your division, your record might suffer, where maybe you don't have the record to get that home field advantage or that first round bye or things of that nature. But it'll be fun to watch. These are four, in my opinion, above average football teams.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a great week 1. And I'm trying to look at all of their opening schedules because I was going to see who they kick off the season or the week 1 with.
Yeah, I can check that out.
Week 1.
We got San Fran's at Detroit, so nothing. Arizona's at Tennessee. Seattle's at Indianapolis. Super good timing for Seattle there.
Yep.
Playing Indy in week 1. And who are we missing? LA has the Sunday night game against the Chicago Bears at home. So I would imagine 3 of those 4 will be favored in their matchups, with Arizona probably an underdog at Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, again, I could even see them winning that game potentially against Tennessee, depending on, we'll get into some of these other quarterback rankings and some of the other divisions as well later on in the week, but we'll see where Tennessee's looking to bounce back. I feel like they're going to be pretty good, but you never know what you're getting with Tennessee sometimes. So, yeah, I mean, that could easily be a 4-0, week 1 with these teams. So a lot of fun here, a huge division. So we'll keep an eye on this one, but we also want to cover the other West division in the NFL, and that is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Chargers.
I thought you were just going to call it the Kansas City Chiefs division when you let off with the Chiefs.
Nope. We're doing it all here with all of it. So, yeah, no, we're all 4 of these teams. These are the teams we have the most connection to, Scotty. And obviously, I'm a big Broncos guy. You're a big Chiefs guy. And we have friends that are kind of all over the spectrum. You have a lot of Cowboys friends and that sort of thing. My cousin's a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, so I'm really in tune with this division at the moment. But as far as this one goes, this will be, I don't think this is going to be like a real barn burner of a division necessarily, because obviously the Chiefs, in all honesty, I'm a realist, right? I know when the Chiefs, it's their division to lose, and they won't lose it. So, you automatically see them coming in and being the top team in this one. And then also you have the Chargers, who are coming up as well, with Justin Herbert, still young, but still, you don't know what you're necessarily getting there either. Scotty, I think you might be Can you hear me still, Scotty?
I can hear you. I lost your screen. I can't see the shared screen.
Hold on.
Look at a big screen of myself, and it's hard to look at.
But let me get you in here. All of the fun stuff here. All the Discord. technical difficulties here.
I tried to click on it. It didn't work. We're killing the game here.
Hey, it's all right. We're getting back in it. We're getting back in it. Let's just pull this together here. There we go. All right, we're back.
I got it.
All right.
Yep.
Hey, XX Goal, what's up, guys? How you doing, XX Goal? How you doing? Thanks for popping in and joining the stream. Where you from? Tell us about yourself. We're talking some football here. You a big football fan? Let us know. But yeah, we're talking right now the AFC West here. Just gold, fella. All right, cool. Yeah. All right. Love it. Yeah. Love that you're here chilling with us here on a Sunday night. But let's see. So AFC West. So we have, again, the Raiders, Broncos, Chargers, and Chiefs. Now, next goal, Toronto. I like football. Heck yeah. See? We're still getting international with the stream here, Scotty. Now we could add Toronto to the list of viewers. This is awesome. Like,
does that mean are you like a Buffalo Bills fan? I know they're probably the closest geographically to Toronto. So, show for yourself for the NFL. Nice. We'll have to check that out. Let us know.
Throw
when
it.
That's on, and we can check it out.
Yeah, throw it in there though. Throw
Packers.
us.
Okay.
I'll have to check out your show and what you guys got going on. Oh, appreciate the follow. Thanks, Gold Glover. Appreciate it, man. Love it. So Packers, yeah. So you got Aaron Rodgers back, so that's fantastic for another year. So you can, rest assured that he's gonna hopefully get you through the season and maybe to that NFC Championship like he historically can do. And
I feel like that was shots fired right there.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about him only making it to the NFC Championship game.
Well,
coming from a guy that's a Broncos fan and was just like salivating at the idea of Aaron Rodgers going to the Broncos.
I would love Aaron Rodgers coming to the Broncos, but unfortunately, I gotta wait a year. I think. Gonna let that one fly. Love it. All right. I get it. No. That's a weird though. Like, let's say Aaron Rodgers takes him and wins it all. Like, that's still kind of a weird situation to be in, right?
I mean, does he leave if he wins it all? I don't. That's a tough one. They have a few months. They got like 9 months now or something, 6 months, something, to make him happy where he doesn't leave after this offseason. But it seems like he's not near that spot right now, not near that place. So a lot will have to change this year, and a lot will have to be forgiven. But hopefully, the guy you moved up and took in the first round last year will be ready to go. Not that he's going to be an Aaron Rodgers, but
Gold Glover. He ends up in Denver or possibly San Francisco, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Denver's still on.
It's got to be Denver.
It's got to be on the list. And I think that's why the Denver Broncos haven't necessarily made any major crazy moves. I think they're pretty much just trying to figure out how they can get through this season with what they got. If something ends up panning out, obviously we'll end up like taking a look at that, i.e. Drew Lock, because he's the only one that has the potential to be a long-term situational quarterback here in Denver. Like, you're not betting on Teddy Bridgewater to be a long-term solution. So it's either going to be Drew Lock or potentially Aaron Rodgers, right? So those are the only situations outside of, we haven't been able to ever draft a quarterback here in Denver. So the only quarterback that we have ever cultivated was John Elway, and we didn't even draft him. Go figure, right?
Got him on draft day, but did not technically draft him.
We technically did not draft him. So Broncos draft history of quarterbacks is not great.
Well, ironically, the guy who's not great at it is John Elway, because he's the one who's drafted lately all these guys that have been kind of trash. So Gold in the chat talking about not convinced by Jimmy G. Yeah, we definitely aren't. San Francisco isn't. That's why I think they went and picked up Trey Lance with the number 3 pick in the draft. We actually just covered the NFC West a little bit and talking about maybe if it'll be interesting whether Jimmy holds on to the job all year or Trey Lance at some point, if he fouls up, makes a move, and takes over the quarterback spot in San Fran.
So let's get to it. Chiefs 13-4, top of the West. All right, so Scotty, let's dive into this. Let's get your Chiefs. Where do you see them as a team that can go 13-4 or better, or where do you see them coming out? We know they're going to win the division. We know that's kind of a given the rest of the division, and the Raiders are a mess. The Chargers are kind of on the up and up, but not quite there yet, and the Broncos just need a quarterback. But the Broncos do have an incredible defense from what we understand, from what they've put together. They could have a really, really solid defense to keep them into games if they can have a game manager at quarterback. So it's an interesting division after Kansas City, but where do you see the Chiefs kind of panning out in this one?
I mean, first of all, it's weird to see the record at 13-4. I'm still not used to the 17 games that they're gonna play. So being like 13-4, I'm like, that's weird to see like written out like that. 13-4 is certainly achievable. I mean, they were 14-2 last year, and that's with they sat their guys last week. They were actually 14-1, sat all their starters last week of the season and lost that game. So I think they're a little more well-rounded. They shored up that offensive line incredibly. I mean, everyone watched that Super Bowl. That offensive line was a disaster. Obviously, there's some injuries there, but they have turned that completely over. The talk of Chiefs camp, I'm going to be honest, is the 6th round pick they got out of Tennessee, right guard Trey Smith, is a beast and a monster. 2nd round pick Creed Humphrey at center's been phenomenal so far at camp. Both those guys are going to start. They obviously signed Joe Tooney from the Patriots, a Pro Bowler for the last couple of years, in free agency at left guard, and then traded for Orlando Brown, Pro Bowler from Baltimore last year at left tackle. So the only question mark is probably right tackle there, but Rimmers, who played some as the backup, played a lot there last year actually, and had to move to left tackle in the Super Bowl, and that didn't go well. Has been injured most of camp. So they have Lucas Niang, who they drafted 2 years ago in the 3rd round, who might be the guy for that if Rimmers isn't ready to go. But I mean, the Chiefs, I think 13-4 is, listen, I'm shocked, but that these odds are only minus 250 on the Chiefs. I'll be honest, like those seem crazy. That seems like too good of a deal. Like who realistically is going to come out of this and play consistent enough football where they can over 7, like the more games you play, the easier it is for the team that's got better talent and whatnot to come out to the cream of the crop. So I say the Chiefs at minus 250 is a steal. They have they have the best odds to win their division of any team in football, but I still think minus 250 is too low. I think right now the Chargers on paper should be the next closest competition. Gold here talking about Chargers at 11-6. That feels like that could be a pretty solid point there. 11-6 feels a little right. Maybe in the like 10-7, 11-6 range, because it seems like they're just injury prone year after year. So I don't know if I trust them. They get Derwin James back, who's basically missed the last 2 seasons, a stud safety. Obviously, we get Justin Herbert in year 2. But the sophomore slump, especially for QBs, is a thing at times. So I'm not saying listen, I think Justin Herbert's a stud. I think he had a phenomenal rookie year and is going to be solid this year, but he was still inconsistent at times. But I think they're certainly the second best team. The crazy thing about these odds is how far for the division, how far the Raiders are behind. So Chiefs minus 250, Chargers plus 450, Broncos plus 600, Raiders plus 2200.
Ooh.
So obviously the Raiders, finished, I believe, in either second or tied for second in the division last year, around the Chargers, ahead of the Broncos. There's weird things going on in Vegas though, man. Their offensive line was probably the biggest strength on their offense, and they lost a bunch of them this offseason, including, I talked about Rodney Hudson, Trent Brown at tackle spot left, Gabe Jackson they let go and moved on from. Like, I don't get what the Raiders did this offseason. Their defense is still awful, and that's where I think Denver makes hay. Like, Denver's defense on paper looks really, really good. Obviously, they're getting Von Miller back. You can dive into this a lot too. Their secondary, they've invested a ton in when they took Pat Surtain in the first round. And also added, I'm drawing a blank on his name, the corner from Chicago. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, to go along with signing Ronald Darby, who I don't love, but they've invested a ton in their secondary. I do worry about their linebacking core. I think their linebacking core is going to be the weak spot of their defense there. Offensively, the reports in camp have been like everything I've heard on the radio. Normally, when I listen to Denver sports talk, people are just raving about how good camp is going. I've been listening to 104.3, and maybe that's not the one I should be listening to, but this year they've been dogging on how lifeless camp feels and how there's no energy. These quarterbacks, like neither of them have taken the position by any means and run with it. So usually the old saying, when you have two of something, that means you really don't have any, right? Like when you have two quarterbacks, that means you don't have one. I think that kind of feels like the case here, and that's clearly the glaring weakness with this Denver team, because you got a lot of weapons. Obviously Jerry Jeudy, you got Cortland Sutton coming back. Tim Patrick's a solid wide receiver. KJ Hamler, your speed guy.
Noah Fant
at tight end. Like, they got a ton of weapons. Their offensive line is okay. Some spots there that are concerning, but it's not as terrible as it was maybe 2 years ago. And obviously Bowles had a breakout year last year. They paid him at left tackle. I worry about their center position, but they did draft Belly Boy, that Quinn Miners boy that could take over if Lloyd Cushenberry, who they drafted last year, can't step up a little. Dalton Reisner's a nice piece. Otherwise, I'm a little leery of their offensive line, but they got weapons on the outside for sure. But they don't have a quarterback to navigate those weapons, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing coming out of training camp from what I've been hearing as well. And I've actually been trying to make it out to one of the training camps, and I haven't had a chance. I've been trying to get there, get all you guys the insiders information straight from my eyes, which I feel like are pretty good. I got LASIK, so I should be able to see all the ins and outs, right?
Do you have LASIK?
I do.
I learned that today.
There you go. See,
I learned that today.
You learned a little bit about your brother-in-law here, right? So we're all good. No, I can see like incredible. I used to wear contacts, and it was a pain in the ass, but I feel good now. Love it. So I can see all the little nuances at training camp. So I got to bring you guys straight from the source. But yeah, no, like you mentioned, there's the problem with our quarterbacks is they've been making none of them have really been surpassing each other in Denver as of right now. So one of them may be doing great the first half of practice. Drew Lock might be doing fantastic. All of a sudden, throws a couple picks or just has a rough afternoon. Then vice versa. Same thing with Teddy Bridgewater. Comes in, makes some mistakes, but then looks great the second half of practice, or back and forth. So the biggest thing was the fact that is consistent with through all of this is the fact that the defense is really challenging our offensive side of the football to really make the best decisions. And it's tough when you have a good defense that on paper is as good as it looks. And from what all indications are based off of, some of the people who have been covering camp, this is some of the best defensive football that they've seen in camp in a long time. So as far as that goes, I'm really encouraged about, defense can keep you in games, but the problem is you still got to score points. And when you're playing a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, who score points regardless of how good your defense is, you still got to put up 20 points a game minimum to keep even close, even if you have a good defense. So defense and offensive weapons, as you mentioned, are going to be the biggest strengths of this Denver Broncos team. Obviously, there's injuries are always a big thing as well, but and then here's a thing that not a lot of people talk about is special teams. Special teams hasn't been great here in Denver the last couple of years. It's definitely taken a step back, and obviously we need to get a little better on that front. But overall, I mean, I love what everyone's saying from Noah Fant. I mean, Noah Fant could be the breakout tight end. We get into this in tight ends coming up here as we get closer to the tight end rankings that we get on for all of our fantasy football stuff. But Noah Fant, look out for him to be one of the ballers here. KJ Hamler's another one that's been really on point with so far this season in the slot. One of the best slot receivers we got on this team, and he can really he's going to be amazing. So they've said he's going to be better than Eddie Royal, and Eddie Royal was a pretty good slot receiver here when he was part of our team as well. So it's going to be an interesting one here with Denver. I think they do outshine Las Vegas here for the third spot, but as far as everything else goes in this division, I feel like the Chargers and the Chiefs really have what it takes to just go a little bit further in this one. Scotty, anything else you want to add to that?
No, I did want to read. This is how lifeless the Broncos camp has been. I think yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, there was a fight at camp between Bradley Chubb and Garrett. In that fight, so this is the AP article written about that fight. It opens and it says there was finally some excitement at the Denver Broncos training camp, and it had nothing to do with the drudging quarterback clash between Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Like, that's how they led the article about two teammates fighting each other. That's you can't love to see that. And those are the reports I've seen. It's just been a little lifeless. And obviously training camp's weird when you watch highlights and read reports, because you're like, you watch a highlight and it's like the offense does something great and you're like, oh, that's amazing, except the defense looked really bad right there. And vice versa. If the defense makes a play, you're worried about the quarterback or the wide receiver, or they on the same page. Obviously with the Broncos, I would think in camp you want to see the offense succeeding a little more, because I think on paper you believe the defense has what it takes to make plays. So if the offense is playing well, that just bodes really, really well, and that really hasn't been the case in camp, and vice versa for the Chiefs. I'd rather see their offense struggle a little bit in camp and the defense play really well, because I obviously know that offense is going to be just fine, and rely on that defense to kind of make sure that we don't let teams back into games like we did last year at the end of the games and have all these one score wins that we had, even though they really kind of weren't. But anyway, I think we agree on the order on this division. I think we're both looking at Chiefs, Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders in that order of finish. So this one's a little easier to call, I think. Not that order will be for sure, but I think certainly the Chiefs at the top should come to fruition, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the division. But I feel most confident about first and fourth, actually, with Chiefs and Raiders.
I mean, the Raiders are just so dysfunctional, right? They just don't. I mean, between their just pie in the sky, not in the real world quarterback, to their head coach John Gruden, which hasn't. I mean, he's just all over the map. Is he still? He's in year 3 or 4 now of 10. He got a 10-year deal. 10-year massive contract. There was a website that was out there, I think, that you could type in johngrudencontract.com or something like that, and you'll just see how much money he makes, and it's like a clock countdown, and it's counting off how much money he's making until the end of his contract. I think some Raiders fans put that together because they're pissed off about everything that's going on in Las Vegas. So, hey, I don't know. As long as we don't finish worse than the Raiders in this division as of right now, I'll be happy. But I'll tell you what, if somehow, some way, Drew Lock can figure out what he's got going on here, along with those weapons and the defense, I feel like there's a decent upside to potentially have them finish above, maybe a Chargers in this division, if he can get his shit together, which, that's still yet to be seen. We haven't seen enough in training camp for us to even get excited about that yet. So, but our defense is definitely there, and our offensive weapons are definitely some of the best in the league. So, regardless,
I think for the Broncos to be a playoff team, they have to. Yes, Drew Lock's going to have to step up, or if it's Bridgewater or whoever it is, but I think the defense is going to have to be a defense that creates a lot of turnovers and creates field position for that offense.
Yep.
I don't see that offense being consistent and being able to sustain long drives. And that's something the Broncos defense, which at times has been pretty good over the last few years. But the one thing they haven't done, like they did, obviously in their last Super Bowl run and whatnot, is create turnovers. So that'll be a key factor. Obviously, getting Von Miller back, it'll be interesting to see what he's like. He's not quite as young as he was coming off a year off. Is that going to rejuvenate him? Is he going to be rusty? We'll see what happens there. But he's kind of playing like and what's weird about this defense is a lot of these guys are on like 1-year deals. Von Miller, Kyle Fuller, the corner I couldn't think of before that they signed from the Bears, is on a 1-year deal. I think they re-signed Kareem Jackson to a 1-year deal.
Yep.
So a lot of these guys are kind of just on these 1-year things where it's kind of interesting that they're doing that with a team that I don't think is like at a spot where they're ready to compete for like a championship by any means. But you don't want to just you want good players on your team. So I get why they're doing it. But this feels, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but this feels like Von Miller's last year in Denver to me.
He's definitely on his last legs in Denver for sure. I don't think he's definitely there. It just feels like it's a will see situation. Like if we get Aaron Rodgers, like we were talking about with Gold Glover here in the chat, if we do get Aaron Rodgers, maybe that changes. And it also depends on how he performs this offseason as well, or this season, I should say, because he's coming back off of a major injury, right? And then he still has to be able to perform to the best of his ability. So if he plays very well coming into this season and over the course of the season, I think the chances of him being here a little bit longer are a lot better. But at the same time, if he has an average season and he's not going to be a very impactful piece of this defense, is getting old, the injury is kind of playing its role and kind of slowing him down over the course of the season, he's definitely out. I don't see him coming back. So I think the Broncos definitely need to kind of evaluate that as the season goes on. But who knows? Aaron Rodgers, I feel like a good quarterback can, what's that? Isn't there a saying like winning cures a lot of ailments?
Winning cure,
or what's
something like
that if you what's that phrase? Winning.
It's definitely winning cures
something. I don't
know. Winning cures a lot of deficiencies. Or something.
It covers a lot, masks a lot of deficiencies or whatever it is. Yeah. But you get a quarterback that can win games, and it can mask a lot of maybe those. Maybe Von Miller doesn't need to have as productive of a season if he doesn't have to play from behind quite a bit. When you're playing with leads, it's a little easier for your defense to kind of pin their ears back and get after you a little bit. So it all changes with a good quarterback, right? There's a lot that goes into that. So if the Denver Broncos think that that's going to be the case, maybe they hold on to him a little bit longer. But as of right now, without Aaron Rodgers, without any other major quarterback changes, and without any major advancements from Drew Lock, I don't see him coming back. So that's where we're at. But this is going to be an interesting division. Obviously, it's my favorite division because both of our teams are both in this division, so we'll be keeping definitely a close eye on this one as well. So that's the AFC West and NFC West previews, and we will be going over all of these divisions week by week. So coming up this Wednesday, we will be covering a new one, 2 new divisions, and then we're going to be covering another fantasy football position. So speaking of fantasy football positions, we want to get into some of the quarterback side of things. So go ahead and make sure that you are tuning in right now for all of our insights on this little quarterback side of things when it comes to your fantasy football teams here. So we also have some of the rankings below. Gold Glove, also Wednesday night show as well. Love it, man. So, man, it's going to be tough to watch you. Do you have another... What other nights do you stream? Let me know, because I want to definitely
And Chris, I can't see your screen, so I can't see what he's saying.
Oh,
No
my
big
bad. Here, let me get you. Sorry.
You're good. You're good.
All right, there we go. Sorry. Yeah. So, Gold Glove. What other day do you stream? Because I definitely want to make sure I catch your show.
Might just be Wednesdays. We can catch it after the fact. Maybe not live, unfortunately.
Yeah, we might have to maybe watch your
at least catch it,
VODs. We'll definitely catch
it
it
after the fact and see what you got going on Wednesday nights, and then when the season starts, do Thursday night game streams. Nice. We kind of stream obviously on Sunday, so we kind of do that with the Sunday night a little bit. So we can maybe check out one of those Thursday night streams.
Normally go from 8 to 10 p.m. Hey, man, we got to support each other in our streams and all the sports going on. So can't wait. I'm going to hit you up with a follow after the show so we can get get you guys all the support from our end too. So we can send some fans over your direction and vice versa, man. Let's have some fun talking some sports. That's what it's all about. So love it. Yeah, we'll hit you with that follow for sure. Cool. So let's dive into some of these little quarterback rankings. So going into the season, I'll tell you what, when I go into my quarterback rankings and all my running back rankings and everything else, all my draft strategy, I just try to think of here's what I'm going to do going into the fantasy football draft. And here's what I'm going to stick to. And it's usually going running backs first until you get to that sixth, let's say you're sixth or seventh, and you see like a Patrick Mahomes on the board. And you're like, no, he's not going to make it to me the next round. I'm going to hit it. And then all of a sudden you freeze up because you're like, I need a quarterback. But that may not be the strategy, Scotty, right? I mean, with this year's draft, with last year's draft, and the priority of what you need position-wise, I mean, do you where do you start prioritizing quarterbacks when it comes to this year's fantasy football draft?
So this is just my opinion. I think it's a good one, but it doesn't mean it's fully right, and it doesn't mean you can't win doing it a different way. But listen, quarterback's the most important position maybe in all of professional sports, right? Not in fantasy football. I am not big. Years ago, the only time I feel like I ever took a quarterback early, and I took Aaron Rodgers, I don't know, it was back in like 2015 or something, it feels like, in like the first or second round, being like, oh, this is like, I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to do it this year. And then my team was just terrible, just awful. I'm not big on taking quarterbacks or anywhere early. Like I don't even target a quarterback until generally I'm not taking one in the first 4 rounds for sure.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Like if I'm talking like, how do I value quarterbacks? I value running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Well, it kind of depends on the tight end more than I do quarterbacks. Because I like straight up, like if I ask most people finished first in fantasy points at the quarterback position last year, I'm not sure many people would get it right. Do you know who it was?
I honestly can't tell you.
All right, it was Josh Allen, who, by the way, got paid out this week.
Ooh,
6-year
yeah,
extension,
he did.
quarter of $1 billion, I think, $250 million. So, hell of a year last year. Number 1 in fantasy. Now he wasn't the number 1 in average per game because that was Mahomes, but we talked about how Mahomes sat out that last game of the year, so no big deal there. But Josh Allen won last year. Kyler Murray was actually 2. Aaron Rodgers 3 and Mahomes 4. Although, like I said, Mahomes had the highest per game average. Although technically Dak did. Dak played the first 5 games and had the highest average of any quarterback in fantasy rankings last year. So when you look at it, you have Josh Allen had 405 points last year. If I go to the 10th quarterback from last year, he had 341. That was Lamar Jackson, who, by the way, and he sat out some games. So he's probably a little higher than that. But Lamar Jackson was probably he was one of the top 3 quarterbacks taken in fantasy last year and finished 10th. And that can happen in any position. But quarterback, the variance in quarterbacks isn't strong, like crazy enough where you're going to get one that's just so dominant. When I talk about Josh Allen at 1, he had a 405. Kyler Murray had 390. Aaron Rodgers had 387. Mahomes had 380. Like a lot of these got like, there's just not a big variance there. And like as you go down, Lamar Jackson at 10th had 341. So he was 65 points or so behind the number one quarterback last year. So I just don't feel like that separation. And I'll get into, when we get into the position, my biggest strategy point from this year, which isn't always every year, but I have one this year and I love it. And I think it's vital and crucial, but it doesn't involve quarterbacks. So I'll save it for when we talk about that position that I think is vital for you this year. But I don't value quarterbacks. I don't. I like it, but that doesn't mean it'll be interesting to see where these guys get drafted. Obviously, as you look at the rankings, they have Mahomes at 1, Allen 2, Murray 3, Dak 4, Lamar 5, Rodgers 6. A lot of that makes sense, but like I'm looking at, we talked about the NFC West, Stafford at 12. It would not shock me if Matthew Stafford now with LA and those weapons, better offensive mind leading him with, you talked about, if he doesn't lead the league in passing yards this year, like that wouldn't shock me. Obviously, he's not a dual threat, so I don't think he's going to finish 1 in fantasy rankings of the QB, because obviously these guys are dual threats, as Gold kind of talked about. The mobile QB is basically what you got to kind of target if you're taking one early. You can't pick a guy that's just a passing guy, even though Rodgers did finish in 3rd last year, but he was kind of an anomaly. Like I don't expect Rodgers to have the year he did last year. I don't expect Josh Allen to have the year he did last year. So Tom Brady is ranked 9th on ESPN right now. And he can be a solid play for you every week. Herbert at 8, Wilson at 7. There's guys like, if you're in a 12-team league, don't get down into that like 14, 15, 16 range, because that's where I start to worry, where you have like ESPN as 13's Burrow. I love Burrow, a little nervous. It's the hesitation coming off that ACL. And then you have like a Trevor Lawrence, a Matt Ryan, Ben Roethlisberger. That's when I get worried. But honestly, the top 12, when you look at Stafford, Tannehill, Jalen Hurts, who's simply a dual threat, but no one's going to replace Jalen Hurts because Philadelphia doesn't have anybody. So he's going to play. I don't like him as a quarterback, but he'll give you fantasy points. Tom Brady, Herbert, Wilson, Rodgers, Lamar, all these guys, anybody in that top 12, you could ride with, and I'd be decently comfortable with.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, no. And, Gold Glove in the chat is also mentioning what you kind of mentioned, like depending on how your league values and rates and scores some of these quarterbacks, you kind of got to have a little bit of a you got to make sure that you're keeping an eye on those little nuances, right? So if you get more points for doing certain things like running the ball or completions, maybe you look at certain players that maybe are a little bit more in line with some of those stats. But mobile quarterbacks is basically taking a multiple threat pick, right? You can get points from the running game, as well as, maybe those goal line carries at the top. I mean, that's where Josh Allen kind of thrived over the course of his last year with fantasy football, was those goal line, diving into the end zone. They were putting the ball in his hands, right? Deshaun, if he can keep it in his pants, obviously, Gold Glove. We love it. Yeah, it's true. And Mahomes also in that category. And then it also, you have to keep an eye on those types of things. But I will say, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen are the top 3. This is kind of similar to me, as you were mentioning some of those, like on average over the course of a season, there's not a lot of difference between number 1, number 2, number 3 points wise. It's kind of like defenses sometimes, and sometimes you get kickers. You look at the overall general, just take away all of the highs and lows and you average everything out. And it ends up being like, no matter what you do, you're going to get a kicker that's going to get you around the same as, you're going to get from someone off the, you can make plays each and every week and make sure that you're getting some of these guys to come in and give you some points. But overall, they're going to generally average out towards the top and, kind of not be that big of a difference, right? You got to look at divisions and what kind of defenses are in each division, because obviously that's a big aspect of how you can evaluate how easy it is for your quarterback to make some big plays. But I separate these out into some tiers, right? So tier 1, you have, the Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, Josh Allen. Maybe the tier 2s, I feel like, are going to be more of, a little bit of a value. So maybe this is where you're kind of catching some of those guys that may not necessarily go in the first 2 or 3 rounds, but, maybe they're there in the 4th, 5th round, and you get maybe like a Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, some of those guys that could potentially just make some big plays for you, especially Wilson, Jackson, and Prescott. All are guys that have been able to make, plays with their feet and, try to get into some fantasy points, in other ways necessarily than not just throwing the football as well. And then as you get into tier 3, maybe you're taking some chances on some guys that you might necessarily, you might not think are going to be, top of the echelon, but yet they're still going to be solid, right? So maybe a high upside with Justin Herbert or Matthew Stafford. Ryan Tannehill and the Titans have had a potent offense of late. So maybe that's a, area where you can target. Maybe that's that tier 3 quarterback. Then you get Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, our Gold Glove Rodgers in a fantasy guy, which is crazy to say. Yeah, this is the lowest I've seen Aaron Rodgers in a while, and who knows? I mean, maybe he has a insane season, but he's kind of a little bit lower on this tier list too. Finally, getting into tier 4, you're getting into like the ones that kind of are a little bit of a crapshoot. Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence. A lot of young guys here, right? Maybe a couple veterans who are in there that may have good years, but maybe not necessarily like the best. Matt Ryan is another one that kind of falls in this category where he can put up points, but the Falcons are they're not going to be a team that you're really going to rely on a lot of times to just go crazy with it. And then Ben Roethlisberger is getting old. So, obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers, I wouldn't touch a lot of their offense. I wouldn't touch quarterback, at least, for sure. You just don't know what you're getting there. But finally, tier 5, you have a Tua, you have a Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield, which I think Baker's a weird one, right? Baker's kind of lower on a lot of these lists, but given where the Browns are supposed to be this year and what people are projecting for the Cleveland Browns, I don't know, man. Baker falling down there with a lot of the offensive weapons that they have in Cleveland. I don't know. I don't think that. He still has an uphill battle a little bit when it comes to some of these other quarterbacks, but maybe you take a flyer on him.
He's too boomer bust for me. Last year, he had some phenomenal games, but he had way too many games where he didn't even throw for 200 yards.
You want to talk about boomer bust? Jameis Winston's on this little tier 5. You want to get a guy that goes 50 touchdowns and 50 interceptions. You want to go with a guy like Jameis Winston, who, he can fill up a fantasy football stat sheet, right? He can have one of the best fantasy football weekends of any player in the NFL. And then the next week he'll throw like 5 interceptions and 1 touchdown. And it's like, what just happened? Like, what are you getting there? So as you're getting lower on this, you're getting, really bad. Obviously tier 6 is everyone else. The Jimmy Garoppolos, the Ryan Fitzpatricks, who you love, your Fitzmagic coming in.
Fitzmagic.
Drew Lock and Zach Wilson with the Jets. You don't know what you're getting. Sam Darnold with the Panthers. Don't know what you're necessarily going to get there. Cam Newton with the Patriots. That offense is all over the place with who knows what you're going to get there. So that's kind of where I break out my tiers and what I've kind of seen over the course of this. But I've never been a guy to take a quarterback super early in NFL fantasy football drafts. Like, I feel like the first time I usually take a quarterback is maybe end of the 2nd round, early 3rd round. And that's a high-end quarterback. Like, it historically have been Rodgers, or Brady or Breeze or some of those like high potent, high flying quarterbacks that throw the ball over and over and over. So that's kind of where I've always like, you kind of get on the tier, but obviously running back and receiver is going to be a huge first and second round commodity that you need to make sure you're getting the top talent in those areas. So when it comes to quarterbacks and where you should strategically put your quarterback rankings, I completely agree with Scotty here. In save those for the third or fourth round at the earliest. I mean, I feel at the absolute earliest, because if you're trying to go for a quarterback, even if it's really juicy to take a Mahomes at like the second round, and you're like, man, I know what he's going to get me. He's insane. Yeah, but there's not that many running backs, and there's not that many elite wide receivers there's a lot of receivers in the league, but there's the ones that you want go fast. The well dries up. So make sure you're getting those guys locked in first and foremost before you dive into some of these quarterbacks, because you'll be able to find good value in those tier 3, tier 4 that I mentioned that can get you good solid fantasy points. You might not be able to find that in other positions.
Yeah. Here's I'm gonna unlock the key for everyone that's watching on my strategy this year at quarterback. And Gold Glover sort of mentioned it a little bit. There's a very, very interesting name and piece out there. So what I would do if I were you, if I were drafting, is I would target one of those quarterbacks ranked around 8 to 12. Like I said, after 12, I'm worried about a drop off, but those guys ranked 8 to 12, when you're talking about Herbert, Brady,
Tannehill,
Jalen Hurts,
Stafford.
I'd target one of those guys. And then if you get late on in the draft, and let's be clear, the last two, you do not ever pick a kicker or a defense before the last 2 rounds. Don't ever do it. So for those last 2 rounds, and you're getting later on in the draft, and you have one of those 8 to 12 ranked guys that you're a little nervous about, throw out a pick for Deshaun Watson. All right. He finished 5th in fantasy last year. If he plays, he's going to be a stud for you. He's probably going to start for you. It'll be interesting to see how that situation shakes out. Listen, this is fantasy football. There's no morals in fantasy football. So you can't think about like, oh, should I pick this guy because he did some weird stuff with some masseuse? That's not how I think in fantasy football. I'm trying to make money. So I'm not worried about that. That sounds bad, whatever. But throw a flyer out there on Deshaun Watson late. If he's still there late and no one else has done it, throw a flyer on Deshaun Watson. Let him sit on your bench, because he's probably not going to start the season playing, and see what happens as the season progresses. And if he does play, all of a sudden, if your team's playing well and you're getting into the playoff time and he starts playing, you insert a top 5 fantasy QB that you haven't had on your roster prior to that in for playoff time with a stacked roster otherwise, because you didn't take a quarterback early. So, because he's a guarantee to be a stud if he plays, but no one's going to take him high because no one knows what's going to happen with him.
So here's another thing too. So you mentioned, Tannehill, Stafford. Tannehill finds himself, in third tier in what I have him at. Without a high volume passing attack or insane rushing ceiling. The key is his efficiency. His average position in the draft is, or he's a QB 10, ranked 10th overall, right? So he is definitely. I mean, he's going in the 7th round, and he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks out there. So as far as that goes, if he's available at that point in your draft, he's a great value option. Aaron Rodgers is coming off the board 2 rounds before him, and is around, instead of that, QB 10, he's like, around a little further based off of what his production's been. And same thing with Tom Brady. Like, Tannehill is a great value if you're really looking to, get some just really solid, quarterbacks a little bit later. It's totally fine to wait. I mean, I'm telling you, it's definitely worth it to just be patient. You always want to make sure that you're thinking about things. It's like sometimes you see some of like the tight ends, like the top tight end coming off, and you're just like, all right, I got to get my tight end now because and you see this tight end train going, and everyone starts taking tight ends or whatever. Like Travis Kelce comes off the board. It's like, don't fall into the mix. You see that Patrick Mahomes come off the board. Don't fall for the cute quarterback train. Just be patient because you will always get some good value later on in the draft. I promise you, you'll get there. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your draft and go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll say one more thing. If you're a guy and you're like, I can't wait that long. I need to know my quarterback's good. I need to know that plays, I can rely on that guy. The guy in the top 5 that I think could slide a little due to basically just injuries from last year, and he's also not throwing right now, is Dak Prescott. That would be the quarterback. I know the Cowboys are my NFC team, but I'm not telling you to take Mahomes. If you have Mahomes on your roster next year in fantasy football, I think you made a big mistake because you took him too early. You shouldn't have addressed quarterback that early. Dak, if you see Dak slipping to, the 4th, 5th round, something like that, and he's there, then I think that potentially could make sense. Because, like I said, Dak blew up last year and was number 1 in average per game in his 5 starts that he did have before going down with the injury. A lot of that was because he had a terrible defense. I think the defense will be improved this year, but the defense is still not going to be anywhere near elite. So he's going to have to make plays. I think the upside with Dak is there more than maybe some of the Lamar could also have some upside. But I don't see that upside with like Aaron Rodgers had an incredible last year and finished 3rd and was obviously MVP of the league. Like he doesn't have the upside to finish 1st in fantasy. Yep. Dak and Lamar do. Where a lot of those guys around that area, I just don't see. So Dak would be the guy. If you want to target a top 5 guy, wait a little bit. He's not going to be one of the first 3, maybe even 4 taken. And then maybe you can target it if he slips a little bit because people are worried about his injury case. Now, if you take Dak, I'd want to cover him with a decent second option just in case he's, for whatever reason, not healthy. But it sounds like from everything I've heard, he's going to be good to go, and he's going to be ready to go to start the season.
And again, you get a solid quarterback, you feel really good about your draft at this point when you get 2 or 3 solid position players, like maybe a running back, couple receivers right off the bat, maybe another, position that you really feel really strong about based off of what's available in your draft. And you go into your value quarterback pick and you have everything you wanted ahead of that. It's a good feeling to have. I've always loved that situation because you never know what other people are going to overvalue or undervalue, right? So, and then again, you could always address some sleeper backup quarterbacks with another pick. Now, keep in mind, if you have a stud quarterback, you're not going to be swapping him out very often, right? So you don't need to prioritize a backup quarterback by any means until later rounds as well. So keep that in mind when you're going through your draft. So that's where we're at with some of these. And yeah, I think this could be a really, really fun fantasy football season now that we're kind of post-COVID by another year. We're still going to probably have some issues with that, but a lot less than what we would have had before. A lot of teams are getting vaccinated and trying to push that on a lot of their players to make sure that they're staying under protocols and things along those lines. But,
we've seen the quarterback position already affected in training camp, though. Lamar Jackson got COVID for the 2nd time. Of course, he had it last year, had to sit out, and then got it in training camp again this year. Obviously not vaccinated. Has had it twice. And then a guy who's also not vaccinated but hasn't had it, Kirk Cousins, had to sit out due to close proximity to one of the other quarterbacks on the roster that did test positive. He never did, but he still had to have that distance from the team. So there's a lot of quarterbacks. Actually, someone was talking about it the other day on Twitter. There's a lot of quarterbacks that haven't come out and said specifically whether they have or have not been vaccinated. I think it's less than half the quarterbacks in the league have stipulated. Now, that doesn't mean they haven't been. No one's obligated to say whether they have or not. But I think there's more quarterbacks not vaccinated than people maybe assume out there. So that'll be interesting to watch and see. Now, obviously, even if you are vaccinated, you can still, obviously, as we've seen, get COVID and have to sit out. So who knows? I wouldn't base this year right now. You can't base too much on COVID because it's so unpredictable on what's going to happen with these guys. So, but if you're leery to take a guy like Kirk Cousins because he's been in the news a lot for not being vaccinated and whatnot, I'm fine with that. Like, I'd be leery of that too. A guy who, ironically, they're a little leery of it. Like, ESPN has him ranked 22nd. I want to say last year he finished actually 10th. So they're down on him too, or he finished 11th last year. Which you wouldn't think Kirk Cousins is 11th in quarterback, but he's ranked 22nd by ESPN, probably somewhat because of that non-vaccination. But I would take him higher than that. But something to look out for.
Gold Glove, guys. This was fun. I'll catch you next time. Have a good night. Hey, you too, man. Good luck on the next stream. We'll see you on Wednesday. And, yeah, I'll make sure to catch your VODs and give you a quick follow. So thanks, Gold Glove, for popping in. We will see you again soon.
Appreciate it. Appreciate the follow. And, yeah, we'll check out your stream. Good luck with all your stream. And hopefully we can unite some fans and talk some football.
Yes. All right. Have a good one. Deb and Chad, I've had Cousins in the past, and he sucks. Yeah, he's obviously had his up and down seasons for sure. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking at fantasy pros here and some of their stats, and they have Mahomes penciled at most of the time as far as averaging from their draft analysis. Mahomes penciled it in at the first pick of the second round, which is averaging around in 12-person league, 13.3 on that average draft position. So, man, I mean, he's going early, which leaves a lot of players. I mean, at that point, you're giving up on guys like Stephon Diggs, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Joe Mixon. There's a lot of really good players that you're passing up on there to take a quarterback that, you could probably get the same value later on. So just keep that in mind. Same thing with Josh Allen could come off the board as well, shortly after that. Taking him around number 22-ish draft position will likely cost you guys like Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Calvin Ridley, some guys like that, where, those are impact players that can really make a difference on your fantasy football team. So make sure you're really thinking that through when you're getting in there and, trying to think when you want to take that quarterback. Just think about it a little bit. Just take a step back, because I know breathing in and out and seeing your number and your name coming up. When you
see Mahomes picked and your name's not attached to it, your team name, you shouldn't be mad. And that's coming from the biggest Chiefs fan ever and biggest Mahomes fan ever. You shouldn't be mad. You should be excited.
Yeah.
All right. That saves a player for me because I wasn't going to take quarterback early. So anytime QBs are coming off the board early, that's great for you. You should be thrilled by that.
By the way, Sky, we still got to get our fantasy football. And by the way, I have another thing that just hit my radar. There's a Vegas thing that the Caesars Palace is doing where it's a fantasy football survivor league that I think there's like about 700 people in it at the moment. And it's like $1,000, whatever. And what it is you pick one team against the spread each week to win. And I think it's something like that. I have the text. I'll text it to you.
Not fantasy.
No, not fantasy. It's a different thing. But
okay.
But we got to get our fantasy league, Vegas fantasy league, or whatever we want to do going as well, because that's going to be a lot of fun. But yeah, so we're going to hit you each and every show from here until the start of the NFL season with some fantasy football strategies and player profiles when it comes to positions on the football field, for running back, for wide receiver, for tight end, for defense, special teams, kickers, all that good stuff. We're going to be hitting you with all the knowledge you need to make the best fantasy football picks of your life. And that's going to be coming up here in the next couple shows. So if you're here and you're loving the content, you're loving all the information we're giving you when it comes to all the tips and tricks of your fantasy football draft, hit that follow button, because it means a lot. We're halfway through our follower goal tonight. We hit one Gold Glover gave us that first one. We need one more to get us to our goal tonight. So make sure you hit that. We didn't hit it last time. We only got one last time, and we got one this time. So we really want to hit that follower goal. Make sure you hit that, and we'll make sure you have everything you need. And then you also know when we go live each and every week. So make sure that you are a part of everything we got going on, and we love more family like Gold Glover just did popping in on the show. So we're going to hit you with a brief intermission, and we're going to wrap up the show here with a little bit of our we're going to run the wheel with you guys, and we can't wait for that. There's a lot of stuff we want to cover, and we will be covering all of that here after the break. So make sure you don't go anywhere. We're going to be back in less than 1 minute. So don't get up. Stay here. We'll be back. See you here in less than a minute.
1 minute.
All right, we are back. We are back here in the Action Lab. Thanks for hanging with us over that little brief intermission. Let's see, Devin chat. Vehicle of follow tonight. I haven't seen the follow come through. Maybe I might have missed it. But if he did, then he might need to do it
in our little feed here, right?
Yeah, I don't have
it.
it.
Follow maybe on like Facebook or something, and not on Twitch. Could have been a different follow, but I didn't see that either.
Yeah, he might need to refollow there, but we'll keep an eye out for it for sure. Again, we like all the followers coming through, so appreciate all of you guys. So we're going to run the wheel a little bit. Now, we have a few topics here we just want to close out the show with, just to kind of give you a little bit of background on what's going on with some of these stories, and then we will wrap up the show soon. So, Vic, it was on Facebook. I think it might have been an old one. You might have done it a long time ago, so you're already locked in. If it was on Twitch or something else, then maybe it's a different notification, different follow. So it doesn't necessarily count towards tonight's follower goal unless it's on Twitch. So appreciate it. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. There we go. Oh no, that's a like from the.
That was so close.
That was so close. But hey, you know what? I love that you liked the stream, because you know what? That means a lot to us too. So, and we see you popping up here. So thanks for being a part of the stream tonight. But let's spin this, and we'll talk about what we got going on here with some of these different stories. All right. So we are popping off on PSG. So in case you didn't know, we had some news surrounding, kind of a big time name. You might have heard of him, Lionel.
Is he?
Lionel Messi there ended up being some issues with him retaining his position with Barcelona, and he ended up getting offered and agreeing to a 2-year deal with PSG to be their new football star. So with this, I mean, they're getting one of the top players in the entire world, if not the best player in the world, and he is going to be on their roster for a couple years, which is exciting if you're a PSG fan, right? Now, there was a heartfelt press conference with everything where Messi was doing everything he could to stay with Barcelona. At one point, I saw a tidbit of he was willing to take half his salary to stay, and just didn't end up working out. So he ends up moving on and going to play with PSG to finish out his career, which, you know, is kind of crazy. You know, it's weird. We've seen him in a Barcelona jersey for so long, and to see him shifting over to a PSG, it's going to be strange. You know, it's kind of like seeing, you know, iconic, you know, players in any sport go to a. It's like seeing Karl Malone in a Laker jersey or something. Like, it's like, what? That doesn't fit. Not that he was like as impactful
except Messi wins championship.
Yeah, he's not quite as impactful for the NBA as Lionel Messi is for soccer around the world. So there's a little bit of difference there, but it's just like, you know, that optical illusion. Like, is this real? What am I seeing? But Scotty, I mean, what are you thinking about Lionel Messi and what he, one, can bring to PSG, but two, like, it's your thoughts of just him transitioning from Barcelona?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think this is unfortunate. Like, he wanted to stay in Barcelona. Barcelona wanted to keep him. There's rules that have been added that prevented Barcelona from being able to financially offer the contract where they could agree to terms. The press conference that Messi had, I don't know if you saw, he got super emotional. He was emotional over having to leave Barcelona. That's where he said himself about taking offered to take the 50% pay cut, things of that nature, and he was emotional in it. And let me just say, I do really, really poorly with people crying in front of me, but when people cry on this stage and something like this, I absolutely appreciate it. I love it, actually, from Messi. Like, to see the passion, like, he's put his blood, sweat, and tears. He's grown up and become the player he is in Barcelona. His identity is with Barcelona. I would have loved to see him finish his career in Barcelona. Just like when you saw him finally win a tournament with Argentina this season with the Copa America Cup, like, and the passion after that he had, and the excitement he had to finally get a big tournament win on the international stage like that. This guy's passionate and just wants to win and he seems loyal. So it's unfortunate it didn't work out. Now, is PSG getting, like I've talked about before, if I'm talking about peak Ronaldo versus peak Messi, and who am I taking? I'm taking Messi all day, every day. Nothing against Ronaldo, phenomenal player, phenomenal finisher, but Messi brings a lot more to the table, in my opinion. Now, obviously, this isn't peak Messi. We're getting a little bit on the downturn, but he's still one of the best players in the world. Great ad for PSG. We'll see how the dynamic plays with, joining a new team that has, season's already started and is going on. So it's going to be interesting to watch, and it's going to be weird to see him in a different jersey than those Barcelona. Like, I haven't gone to, a ton of places in Europe, but I did go to Barcelona, and man, when I was there, actually, you couldn't find, every other shop in Barcelona had Barcelona jerseys for sale, and you saw Messi, and at the time you saw Neymar, and it was just like out of control, the passion that these fans have for that FC Barcelona team. So I feel sad for them, because that's a super cool spot and a super cool city that I got to visit. But he's gonna keep playing, which is a treat for everyone, and we'll get to see him on a new team.
Yeah,
so we'll see what happens.
I mean, 672 goals in 778 games for Barcelona. He leaves as both the club's record appearance maker and top goal scorer. And this is kind of one of those things where European clubs are bigger than the player, even if it's one of the biggest players. That's just the way it is. The clubs are always going to be. That doesn't mean you can't make a history with a club like he did with Barcelona, but he is definitely one of their legendary players, and he's just a legendary player just in general outside of that. So great finish for his career here coming up at PSG. I mean, he's got a couple years there, so he'll be, trying to do what he does always, and that's score goals and win games. So that's what he mentioned in his press conference. That's what his goal is. So that's what his goal is. To score goals. Oh, see?
His goals to score goals.
Yeah.
Got it.
Love it.
Do they call it goals in Europe? Do they still call it? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I just want to assume they call everything differently than what we call
it. It's always different terminology, right? So,
Like half the people you'd say, hey, are you going to go? They're going to play a game on the pitch later. And people would be like, I'm sorry, what? What'd you just say?
True.
What? Are we talking about baseball?
All right, Olympics. All right, let's. We are approaching the end of the Olympics, guys, and we are done. I mean, we're
there.
We're in the books. There's nothing else. We are completed, and we have everything we need to know when it comes to medal counts and everything. So, USA ended up winning the most medals of any country with 113, China 88, and Rock Nation, Russia Olympic Committee, ended up winning 71 for their country, if that's what.
Ironically, not technically a nation when you say Rock Nation.
No, it's definitely not.
It's Russia. Just call it Russia.
Russia, but they cheat, so it's fine. USA actually ends up edging out China for most golds with 39, and China finished with 38. So that's kind of the big story there. USA basketball comes through and wins in men's and women's. And by the way, I was scrolling through Twitter here, and Johnny Weir is actually trending for his outfit that he has. I don't know if you guys have seen the Hunger Games, but he's getting compared to the guy that does the hosting for Hunger Games. But he has like the Olympic rings kind of like as like on the side of his head with this haircut and this weird half suit. It's weird, man. Johnny Weir is a weird dude, but he throws out his fashion. So that's what we're getting with the closing ceremonies. That's where we're at with everything. Now, there was a lot of, fun stories over the course of these Olympics. And honestly, there were some great feel-good moments. I mean, some of them were really, stand out. I mean, I think Biles, we talked about this on our show, was one of those things that kind of stole the Olympics, stole the show at one point when, she was ultimate team player and bowing out based off of kind of her mental illness or not participating. Correct. And
That's
not
rare.
And I misspoke.
She eventually did.
Yeah, exactly. And just based off of how she, put her team ahead of herself, even though, she wanted to win, that was a big story, right? We talked a lot about this, about, whether it was right or wrong to leave her team hanging. But honestly, we said that, yeah, she did what she had to do for her own, mental health and also for her team to be successful. And her team ended up playing and competing at a very high level. So fantastic story there. There was a couple other stories here that I had on my list. So there was also one where there was two competitors that ended up winning. So Qatar and Italy, both their athletes who competed in the men's high jump ended up with the final completely tied. So at the end of this, and I saw this earlier on, last week, but just a feel good moment when they asked him, like, hey, the judge comes over, is talking to him, and is like, hey, what would, what do you guys want to do? And the Italian guy's like, can we both win? Like, if we both are tied, can we both win the gold? And he was like, yeah. He was like, well, yeah, let's do that. And they both celebrated and hugged, and they were both ecstatic and had these are two guys that haven't won anything. And it was incredible to see some of that. Deb in chat said, yeah, that was amazing to watch. Super heartfelt moment. If you haven't seen that, YouTube it. It's pretty incredible. I thought that was fantastic. Yeah, there's just some great moments over the course of this Olympics, and it's wrapping up here. I honestly didn't get to watch as much as I would like to, but I thought from what I did see, I really enjoyed what competitions I was watching between the badminton, the volleyball, the basketball, all of it. I mean, this only comes around once every 4 years, so it was really nice to get to jump back into it and have a good time watching.
Yeah, this one was less than ideal timing wise for us in America as far as viewing wise, and when it was live, it wasn't always. It may have, a best case scenario, it was starting for us in Denver at like 10 o'clock at night, which is past my bedtime with 3 kids under 4, and then going through the night. So it's hard when you already, I'm terrible. I'm not one of those guys that can know the results and then still want to be like, oh, I know what's going to happen, but I still want to watch. If I know what's going to happen, I'll just watch real quick on the internet and not lead up to the build up. But, hey, first of all, you touched on the medal count. This is the second most medals the U.S. has got at the Summer Games since '84. So kudos to them. They did get more in 2016, but they've been on a hot streak these last 2 Olympics. They were down. They were never in first until the final day as far as gold medals in this one, and pulled out in that last day. I don't know if it might have been the women's basketball team that pulled out that final one. I'm not sure, because they pulled it out on the last day of competition, getting a gold. You didn't mention, and we can talk about in a second, the men's basketball pulling out the gold medal and getting it done when we had some concerns, certainly for a long time there. And I wasn't on the show the other day, but I did say in the chat, in the semifinal, US -12. Only want to do that, took that one down. Another good story was Eddie Alvarez. I don't know if you heard about him. He's the 3rd American to medal in both the summer and winter games. And sometimes I'm like, so I had to look up. I'm like, all right, what did he medal in? I'm sure it's like a similar sport, right? Well, he medaled on the baseball team in this Summer Olympics. Speed skating was his other medal in the Winter Olympics. Like, okay, how unrelated can those be? Like, those aren't related at all. And he was the 3rd to do it. I have it up somewhere, and now I've lost it on who the other 2 were, but one was back in like 1912 with like a boxer, and he did something else. Anyway, that's a super cool thing to see a guy win, a medal in the Summer and Winter Olympics. Super cool to watch. Overall, the timing threw it off for me, so it wasn't my favorite Olympics, just in the sense it was just hard because of when everything was going live, and I just wasn't able to get as involved as I wanted to, because I was excited about this going in. Like, I like watching, usually I watch beach volleyball, I find super entertaining. Obviously the basketball, even 6-man volleyball indoors, I like a lot. Water polo, I think, is super fun to watch. Gymnastics is always a good event to watch. Swimming is always a good event to watch. And of course, track and field, especially some of those sprint races and shorter distances, are a fun thing to watch. So I see what you just put up on the screen, and I get it now. I get it, because I was like, I don't know. He does look like he's in the Hunger Games.
He's like Hunger Games on crack right here. It's crazy. I thought this was one. I just saw it trending. We were talking about Olympics. I saw it on Twitter. I was like, I have to throw it on there. Have to. Who knows who's gonna get excited about this, right? It's just like, I wish it was a better situation for us to keep an eye on over the course of the Olympics. And again, like, with busy schedules and like even notifications, it makes it tough. So I think the Winter Olympics, as Deb mentioned in the chat, looking forward to that coming up. Unfortunately, it's in China, so we're still going to be battling some of those kind of time constraints.
Timing issues.
Yeah, timing issues. So that's just what we're dealing with.
But it's coming up quick. That's going to start in February of next year. So usually, obviously, you have a break. COVID adjusted that, and we're gonna be kicking off the Winter Olympics real soon here in a matter of like 8 months.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with all the Olympic stuff. So it was great to have it. Now we're getting into the NFL season and everything else. So we have a lot still to get to. But, I mean, it was fun while it lasted. It goes so fast, man. It's crazy how quick the Olympic comes and goes. So just for future reference when we get into the winter. And I honestly love the Winter Olympics. I feel like the Winter Olympics are arguably up there in what I like to watch. I mean, a lot of those competitions with snowboarding and some of the, figure skating can be interesting here and there. I don't know, bobsledding and skeleton are crazy. Like,
those are crazy, and it's weird that I like to watch that because as a casual fan, you watch bobsledding and you're like, I can't for the life of me tell you why one group is doing better than the other, but I still want to watch. And I'm like, oh yeah, they finished 0.27 seconds behind. They took that turn a little high, I was told.
I'm like, what? I don't even know what that means. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I do agree, like those are fun to watch.
Well, let's get through this last couple here and see what we got now. All right, so this next one, Florida State. Florida State is going to be in the news as Bobby Bowden, longtime Florida State football coach, ranked second all-time in division wins, has passed away. The school announced he was 91, so obviously lived a fantastic long life, and then also was very successful. So he was diagnosed with a terminal medical condition in July. He did not disclose what the condition was, although someone told reporters later on that it was pancreatic cancer potentially. So yeah, as far as that goes, he had to battle a little bit of that, going through the latter end of his life. Which, if you're telling me you're battling pancreatic cancer and you're 91, I feel like, I mean, that's still. It still sucks, but at the same time,
cancer sucks, and that's the thing. But to go out at 91 with cancer,
that's not something.
Isn't the worst.
That's not something a lot of people ever get to. So I feel like he lived a great life. Obviously, was a big, impactful coach when it came to he shaped football for Florida State, right? So. As far as this goes, we obviously think of, Nick Saban is up there as, legendary coaches, and Bear Bryant, all those guys. And, obviously this is one that's in that conversation as well. He's such a impactful name, especially down south, with all those other big time programs around. And he was able to do what he did and compete at a high level each and every, season when it came to Florida State football. So, I mean, crazy.
Yeah, tribute to this guy. Obviously, second all-time in wins. His coaching resume is unlike anything we'll probably see in today's world. Like his first head coaching job was started in 1956. Head football coach at South Georgia Junior College, fine. But for him, and then from 1956 to 2009, he actually started coaching in 54, first head coaching in 56, but he was head coach of Florida State from 1976 to 2000. That's 33 years as the head football coach of one football program.
Unheard of.
I don't like it. Just in this day and age, like that's just not a thing that occurs. Like you don't see it. It's not going to happen again. Hell of a football coach. Seems like hell of a guy. Like a really genuinely kind. We're religious, felt like, faith was a part of that. Whether that's right or wrong to some of you out there is fine, but in my opinion, like to bring that in and invoke that in your coaching is great. Um, Guy won, obviously, National Coach of the Year things, won a couple national titles at Florida State. I'm surprised it was only 2, actually. Thought it might have been more than that. A weird stat, his 99 national championship team was the first in college football history to go wire to wire as the AP #1 team in the country. So he came in that year with big expectations, but he followed through. That's shocking to me, though, that no one until 1999 started the year in AP #1 and continued the whole year and finished at #1. But he did that. Won the national titles in '93.
That's crazy.
Held on until 2009 to coach Florida State, and a guy that brought a program to national prominence and brought it to where it is now. Like it's been a little down the last few years, but let's keep in mind, like Florida State, it wasn't that long ago that they did win a national championship with finger licking Jameis Winston at the helm. So they're still in a prominent program that'll be on the up and up, and they have a lot of that to thank with Bowden. So hell of a coach, something we won't see probably again with that tenure and that streak at one school like that. But lived a good life. If I make it to 91, listen, you don't want to see people die, but hopefully he's achieved the ultimate goal of salvation, heaven. We're getting a little deeper than we normally do here, and at the same time, if I don't think I'm gonna make it to 91. I'll be honest. If I make it to 91, I'll be shocked.
I think all of us. Shocked. 91 is like
modern medicine is gonna have to achieve a lot for me to make it to 91. Cheers.
Cheers to 91. Hey, we'll both get there, man. We'll get there. It just take some time.
About 91 years or so.
Yeah, and last but not least, Hall of Fame was this weekend. Obviously, we had our Hall of Fame game with the Cowboys and the Steelers, so that always kicks off each and every season. But at the same time, we also had some big-time names. Had a couple Broncos, including Steve Atwater, Peyton Manning. We had Palomalu. I mean, there's a lot of fun names here in this one. And I actually have to go back because I part of me, I have to go back and like listen to some of the speeches. But of late, sometimes these speeches go for like 25 minutes or something crazy. Like they just go forever. So you can only watch certain ones that, obviously are impactful for, based off of who you follow and who you're excited to see enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. But I mean, I have to go back and watch Peyton. I have to watch Steve Atwater, a couple of those guys. This was a great weekend for some big names. So, Scotty, were anybody that you were excited to see get in and get enshrined in the Hall of Fame?
Listen, these were, as we get a little older, it becomes a little more fun for us because these are guys like we grew up watching.
Yeah.
Finally, like. At one point, like the Hall of Fame thing was like, I never saw any of these guys play a game in my life. Like, why am I worried about this? But this one was fun. Like, and obviously this was 2 years worth. So yeah, they had the 2020 and 2021 crew. So last night they had the speeches and enshrinement of the 2020 crew, which I think was 12 guys. Today was 7 with the 2021 crew. So a big group. And I talked about this with MLB and how much they're missing the boat on this, but it's fun to watch these guys achieve and to see them get, whether they get emotional or not, or like how thankful they are. And is anyone out there just being like watching this and being like, man, that guy really shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, and I'm really angry about it? Because and my point is, the MLB Hall of Fame over the course of 2 years has 2 guys going in the Hall of Fame. NFL has 19, and I'm just like, in baseball, it just feels like these writers and these guys who vote on it like are so pompous and have so much power. They're like, no, I'm gonna keep you waiting, or I'm not gonna give it to you. I'm not gonna, like, they're like, oh, it's really hard to get in the MLB Hall of Fame, and I'm just like, but that's not bringing attention to the sport. The whole point of this is like to draw fans. Like that's the point of sports, right? Is to draw in fans, draw in money, draw in intrigue, draw in entertainment. And for you in baseball to just be like in 2021, they voted in no one. No one made it into the MLB Hall of Fame. And I'm just like, that blows my mind. Why? Why are they doing that to a sport? Like, listen, I get it. You have been very, very strict for a very, very long time, but who cares? Just open it up a little. Stop being the worst in writing as far as like, I could. All it becomes in baseball is how to nitpick guys that had phenomenal careers.
Yeah.
Whereas in football, we're celebrating these guys. I thought it was cool, like, Edgerrin James, Troy Polamalu, John Lynch, Steve Atwater, obviously Peyton Manning. So many guys that like we grew up watching and I appreciate and everyone did. I saw some speeches last night. The only one I saw today is I went out of my way to watch. Well, I watched after the fact Peyton Manning's right before we went on tonight because I thought his would be obviously really, really good. And it was really good. He made some jokes to start off, made some entertaining things, and then said some things like, he's very well spoken. I'll give Peyton that. He gave nods to a lot of people. He gave nods to Colts organization, obviously Broncos organization. Did a really, really good job, and none of them ran really, really long. Peyton made jokes about how they're cutting the speeches are being cut shorter now because of how long. He actually opened by saying Ray Lewis's speech is still going on right now from 2018. So
he always brings it. He always brings that.
Yeah, his friend. It was funny. He made a nod to his friend Tom Brady being there, and the crowd ensued in booing Tom Brady. And Tom's just turning around, being like, "What did I do?" But obviously, a lot of Colts fans or Bronco fans there celebrating Peyton. And he's like, when Tom he gets enshrined into the Hall of Fame, because he's talking about length of speeches and how it's going to get cut down more and more. It's like when Tom gets inducted in his first year eligible in 2035, and he's like, the only thing he's going to have time for is an Instagram post. That's going to be it. It's just going to be an Instagram post. So
I got to go check it out.
Made some jokes. He did a good job with it. And actually, someone on Twitter, and I don't remember who I read that referenced it, it was like, Peyton Manning's speech sounded like a guy that could be a future commissioner of the league. And I don't know if Peyton wants that. Like, I don't know if he wants, like, that's a big job for a guy that probably doesn't need it. But I could see it. There's some private aspects of Peyton's life that I think are super weird, but I think he does a great job in, as a spokesperson for the NFL. He's super entertaining. I'm thrilled. We haven't talked about on the show, I don't think, or maybe we did and I forgot, the announcement that him and his brother Eli are going to have their own separate broadcast of Monday Night Football for
we haven't
games this year. And like, I think that's going to be super interesting to watch, because from what it sounds like, they're not going to be they're just two brothers hanging out watching the game. It's not going to be like your normal play-by-play guy with like this and that. And I think they're both funny. Like, Eli posted on Twitter today, Peyton is not the only Manning to win an award today. Abby, his wife, won the consolation bracket of the B League in mixed doubles tennis. This day just became even more special for the Manning family. Don't tell Pate, I don't want to take anything away from his big moment. like, that's just entertaining stuff. Like, that's funny to me. Like,
they're gonna be a lot of fun.
I'm gonna be like, I think they will be a lot of fun. So anytime they're gonna be on, I'm gonna watch unless I watch and decide it's awful. But I expect it to be pretty fun and entertaining.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. I actually was gonna make a note of that to discuss on a future show, and I just keep forgetting to bring it up because it's just like there's been so much stuff going on. But yeah, Peyton and his brother, I think is gonna be fantastic. Devin Chat, the TV game show. that he and his brother have is awful.
See, I have not seen that. I don't actually even know what it is.
I honestly don't know either. I have to
with Cooper.
Yeah,
I think that's their other brother, Cooper Manning.
I
don't know what that is.
I haven't seen it. I have to go check it out. We'll have to give that a shot here and see what it's all about. But we're at the end here, guys. It's been fun. We want to make sure that we just get you guys out of here because it is a Sunday night. You do have a work week this week. For all of you guys who have full-time jobs, part-time jobs, whatever you got going on. So we want to get you out of here. But we will be back here in the lab on Wednesday talking more fantasy football. We're going to cover more different divisions that we're going to be kind of giving you some insights into. So make sure you check that out. Want to give big shout outs to everyone who participated in the chat today. Debicola, Gold Glover, who else? Was that
Vic was in the chat.
Vic was in the chat. Yeah, so thank you guys all. Also want to give a big shout out to everyone who followed. Again, Gold Glover, thank you for the follow. Macaulay last time. James in Facebook. Again, Dark Sage and CJ and everybody else. Marie, I know you were in the last one as well. So thank you again for all your support. So appreciate all of you guys in the Action Lab, all of our lab rats, and we will be back here again on Wednesday. So make sure you hit that follow button if you're here and you just kind of hanging out. You want to get a notification each and every time we go live. Make sure you hit that follow button because that's what that does. And it doesn't cost you anything. It's completely free, and it gets us to our follower goal at the very top, which we appreciate even more. So we're one away. We would love one before the end of the stream here. But love each and every one of you guys.
Towards that 50.
We're getting towards 50. We're at 41, I think. 41. We got one that we're back-to-back shows where we got one last show, one this show. We're rolling.
Let's take it one at a time.
We're rolling.
At that pace in 5 weeks, we'll be at that 50.
Let's go. So can't wait, guys. We will see you back in the lab on Wednesday. Love each and every one of you. Have a great night and a great start to your week.